Hello, everybody! Welcome and welcome back. So, episode 16 dropped, and honestly, I don't really feel that positively about it compared to earlier episodes. It's not like I hate it or anything, but there are a number of things in the episode that didn't quite stick the landing for me, and I will lay out my thoughts on that matter. I'll start with Lake, since she's, in my opinion, the biggest character of the episode. Her conflict with Spencer is still very much ongoing ever since the Bruno elimination. That particular elimination got her so bad that even during the challenge, when Spencer was trying to genuinely connect and relate to her, she stops herself midway and completely rejects all of Spencer's advances from then on. I don't really object to Lake distrusting Spencer, but I will say it's grown a bit tiring and repetitive seeing this dynamic stay the same over the course of 10 episodes now, with Lake keeping this one sided beef going. And on Lake's side in particular, she's rather stubborn and unflinching with her idea of playing an honest and trusting game. But with 16 episodes under our belt now, the results do speak for themselves, and it all consistently shows that Lake's line of thinking is very much flawed. The few times where a vote did actually go in Lake's direction, it was because of Rosa's resolve to separate herself from that overly trusting game. It's mildly frustrating seeing Lake not learn a single lesson even after all this time. She expects the game to change to her whims, but really, it's much the opposite. Lake's the one that has to adapt to the game. To me, it now reads like Lake doesn't care about the competition or even winning the game. She's a sinking ship and she's dragging other people like Rosa down into the depths with her. It's not very fun or entertaining to watch. I do think there will be change to Lake in future episodes, but right now I'm not vibing with her at all. On the other side of this is Spencer. Putting aside Lake, this is a bit of an interesting episode for him actually. Sam really dug into some of his insecurities, and now we have Spencer questioning his approach to the game a bit. It's quite intriguing to me because Sam really does bring up a good point. Spencer being so impersonal, clinical, and by the numbers with his game is what drives allies away from him. And we've seen this happen last season with his relationship with Logan in particular. When Spencer so callously stated that Richard and Natalia, Logan's friends, were simply collateral for the game, it obviously wasn't received very well. And it got to a point where when Spencer was seeking his support during the auction challenge, Logan refused to help. Spencer's downfall that season was due to his own actions, and even if he miraculously survived his elimination round, Logan has made it clear that he's keeping his distance away from Spencer. Spencer really had no allies. Cut forward to this season, and we've seen something similar happen between him and Lake. In episode 12, right after Bruno's elimination, Spencer's trying to again initiate conversation, trying to get back on Lake's good side purely for the sake of the alliance. But what Spencer needs to realize is that it's rather inappropriate for him to minimize the loss of other people's friends right to their face. In this game, people value friendships in different ways, and it's not Spencer's place to impose his ideals onto them. For some people, you just need to give them the time and space to come to terms with their losses. All this being said, I'm really digging what Spencer's getting this season. I'd love to see more of it, especially if it connects back to season 4. And in contrast to Lake, upon Spencer's beliefs getting challenged, we actually get to see some introspection and resolve to set things right. Probably my favorite character this episode. Next is Benji, and if you recall, I was pretty critical of him in episode 15, and I'm still not super fond of him this episode. Starting off though, we have this newfound dynamic with Nura, and by all means, I think it makes perfect sense for him to connect with her. It was pointed out during Benji's season that one of his strengths was his authenticity. Despite Benji holding some shame for his true self, it's that exact thing that actually endears him to certain people such as Tristan and Spencer. And it just so happens that being authentic is exactly what Nura holds in high regard. I think it all works naturally here. No complaints on this front. Obviously, this dynamic is still in its infancy stage, but there's clearly more in store for the rest of the season, and I'm willing to wait and see what happens. I think my problem with Benji comes from the rest of his scenes, particularly in how he strategizes within the game. The reason for him to not accept Rose's pitch was because he thinks Spencer is an easy shield long term. And it's for that reason that he seeks Natalia out to strike a deal with her. And I'm like, where's this energy coming from? Previously, when it was him and Allie together, Allie was the one thinking long term, and Benji was the one being dismissive of Allie, even though she was very much correct in the end. That to me read as Benji having a genuinely horrendous read of the situation, which was what prompted Allie to cut him loose later on. The Rescue Island episode demonstrated that Benji could put in the effort to win challenges, but it never addressed any of Benji's faults in his strategic game, how he was overly naive, passive, and short-sighted. Benji this episode feels like an entirely changed person, but as far as his tactics go, I fail to see what actually prompted him to change. And I also want to question some of Benji's decisions in this episode. I'm interested in knowing why he had such a vested interest in working with Natalia over Rosa. Rosa's one of the few people to actually give him the time of day during the pre-merge, and she was totally willing to connect with him again after his rejoin. Comparatively, Natalia has shown she doesn't hold Benji in high regard at all. It feels odd to me then that Benji would choose to side with Natalia and eliminate Rosa. None of it makes sense to me, honestly. All of this just makes Benji out to be a really inconsistent character, and it really doesn't work for me, unfortunately. Next character I want to talk about is Rosa. What a thoroughly unsatisfying conclusion in my eyes. I did not like how Rosa was ultimately handled this season. Initially, I was so excited to see what Rosa would do after Anastasia's elimination. I was expecting it to be the driving force behind Rosa's actions moving forward. And what made it even more poignant to me was the connection back to Rhea and how Rosa's still reeling from that. It was very fun to see Rosa go through her jaded arc, and it was also interesting to see how Spencer and Allie fed into that mindset. It got to a point where in order to truly succeed at the game, Rosa had to quote-unquote dance with the devil and align with Spencer. All this was fantastic setup, truly. Then in comes Lake, and she kind of pulled Rosa away from all of that. She was able to convince Rosa that she should be a bit more trusting with the people she gets along with. So during her elimination, Rosa takes it pretty easy on Benji despite him voting for her. And this is meant to contrast how doubtful Rosa was about Bruno when he took a shot at her. But I think this is where my issues start to arise. Neither Bruno or Benji are innocent in the slightest. My tolerance for the "I'm just following this person" excuse has run its limit because at the end of the day, these two have complete free will. In Benji's case in particular, if he was apprehensive about targeting Spencer, he did have the opportunity to pitch another target instead. But what he chose to do was lie directly to her face, join forces with her mortal enemy, and vote her out. Benji really just got away with performing all of that chicanery. Ironically, Spencer has become Rosa's best ally in the game in that he never betrayed Rosa's trust and was the one person who actually helped her gain momentum in the game. For Rosa to so easily throw Spencer away and get eliminated right after, it's very humiliating for Rosa to end her run like this. Next is Sam, and honestly, I'm liking him more and more as the merge section goes on. Similar to episode 14, he's bringing a totally different energy to the table now that his mask has slipped. He's being openly cocky and arrogant to just about everyone he interacts with, and it's very fun to watch. And in particularly, the way Fiore handled him was very entertaining. When he pitches voting for Tom to her group, she immediately shuts it down and was basically like, I'm not dignifying this with anything more than a maybe. What a fun interaction. And as well, I really appreciated learning just a little bit more about Sam's character. During the start of the challenge, he insisted on staying outside of the cave because, quote, he's the top ranked player in his company's puzzle league and he just finds puzzles fun. I'm reminded actually of his first episode where he says he specifically practiced paintball because it was his favorite challenge to watch from the first season. Sam really is a big ol' nerd, and I mean that in a very affectionate way. What an entertaining character to follow now that his facade has dropped. Seeing him interact with someone like Fiore who can actually bite back? Oh, I need more of this. Of course, since I just spoke about her, let's cover Fiore. Fiore honestly doesn't have any story going on, but I still respect her presence. It's very funny to see her on screen at all times. She is a pathological liar, and you cannot trust a single thing she says because chances are she doesn't actually mean a word. And honestly, it adds a bit of cuteness to her character. It was really nice seeing Fiore say that painting rocks isn't her thing, only for a later scene to directly contradict that and show her actually indulging in the arts and crafts. And again, I want to see more between her and Sam because Sam really is so hypocritical and full of himself. Fiore is the exact right person to call him out on all of that. No more notes on Fiore, just a consistently entertaining presence. Next, I'm covering Ren. I kind of view him similar to Fiore. He's a nice presence, but there's not a lot of story going on. It feels like a bit of a sudden shift. Previously, during the pre-merge, Ren was basically dictating every vote from episode 6 onwards. With every passing vote he made, it revealed a small bit of arrogance and self-righteousness. And through this, we were able to get that conflict with Nura, which was amazing in episode 12. But now that he's in with Natalia and Fiore, he's not calling the shots anymore. It's something I need to acclimatize to. But I do hope in the future Ren gets to lead a vote to show how he's progressed since episode 12. This episode did give an interesting scene for Ren where he was wanting to apologize to Olivia. And I knew immediately from seeing this that the internet wasn't going to take it well. I knew discussion around the scene would devolve into blame games, who's the biggest victim, who's the biggest offender, who deserves the apology, etc., etc. But I'm not here for that. Screw that. All I want to focus on is that Ren acknowledges that he didn't handle the situation with Olivia perfectly and was able to humble himself enough to attempt to make amends. It's honestly a nice growing moment for him, and he was able to come to this conclusion on his own accord. We're getting content of Ren forging his own path without the guidance of Dunya, and I think it's very nice to see. Next up is Olivia. She had a fairly good episode. Of course, the stuff with Ren is interesting. She got instantly overwhelmed with emotions upon being approached by Ren. I think she might still be harboring some guilt over what happened with Dunya, especially since she was one of the people complicit in voting her out. And she was able to vocalize exactly that with Nura in episode 13. I'm curious if it's a case of Olivia feeling she doesn't deserve an apology from Ren because of her actions, and she doesn't want to potentially make things worse by continuing to interact with Ren. It's a very awkward dynamic at the moment, but I feel at the end of the season these two will be able to come to peace somehow. I'll just wait to see what happens next. What's interesting about Olivia to me is that we're still feeling the ramifications of what Finn said to her, even in this present moment. She's highly self conscious about her own challenge performance, and she enters these bouts of self loathing whenever she doesn't perform well. In this challenge, she actually almost entered a full on panic attack over making a pretty major mistake, and Benji had to tell her to calm down and take a deep breath. I think I like this moment, especially since it builds off of Benji's own experiences pre merge. Her dynamic with Benji is something I probably should have thought about in hindsight, but it's happening now, and I think it's okay to watch. Rounding up this group is Nura. This episode really puts Nora's pessimistic nature on full display, most notably with her interaction with Ren. We've seen before with previous votes, particularly Evie's elimination, that she thinks Ren is very fake and performative. So when Ren approaches Olivia to apologize, she doesn't buy it for a second. And because Nura has gotten so attached with Olivia, she immediately tries to shut Ren down to protect Olivia from that perceived danger. In the following scene, when she's trying to console Olivia, she offers a bit of her perspective on how she's able to cope with her struggles. And it's again shrouded in a pessimism that's incredibly characteristic of her. She believes it's okay to let things go, even if it doesn't end with a positive conclusion. Loss is a part of life, and Nora's way to come to terms with it is to treasure what's important to her. Of course, though, her pessimism is shown to have its limits. In assuming the worst out of Ren based on her prior experiences, she doesn't realize that Ren was being genuine. And this goes further with her preemptive judgment on the favorites, believing that they're cold and heartless for voting Benji out, despite most of them being the exact opposite of that. It's clear that her pessimism is what actually drives her away from potentially worthwhile connections. I'm very interested to see what Nora does in the future. She's a very compelling character to watch, and the arc she's going through has a lot of merit to it. Next up is Natalia. This was a very low key episode from her, honestly. She didn't have much to do aside from deciding the vote for the episode. She's shown to be in a very clear state of unease when Sam pitched Tom's name to her, and it looked like she was about to begrudgingly accept voting for Tom until Benji interrupted and pitched a better deal. She can go for anyone she wants. She ultimately lands on Rosa, but it's left a bit ambiguous how much of it is because of her rivalry with Rosa and how much of it is in protection of Tom. She's been given a get out of jail free card this episode, so I'm eager to see what happens when she inevitably has to target Tom, especially since Tom is in Benji's sights, and part of their deal is that she votes Benji's way. I don't think it'll be as simple as that, but we'll see once we get there. Of course, let's cover Tom since we're on the same topic. Similar to Natalia, he's hesitant to target her, but he's hiding that fact from Rosa for the sake of the alliance. Unfortunately, we don't get to delve much into his mindset. Just like the previous episodes, his and Gabby's votes are completely disregarded and hand-waved away. We see them vote for Spencer at the request of Rosa and Lake, but we never get to see what they actually think about Spencer. And it's odd because they have 15 episodes on a camp together. Surely they feel some way about him. I'm really missing the times when Tom and Natalia were together, because that's where we get some substance out of Tom. Their split up in episode 14 doesn't seem to be working that well for either of them. It's possible that they'll end up back together again despite all these trials and tribulations, but I won't hold my breath for it. And I would be remiss to mention again, Tom has such a weak connection to the Cyan Alliance. His scenes with Lake are few and far between and never seem to push either character in any interesting way. And I thought we would get something between Tom and Rosa considering they were being paired for the challenge, but we got nothing. Everything interesting about Tom all ties back to his relation to Natalia. So let's just get them back together and leave Lake in the dust, honestly. And lastly, we have Gabby. Take my disappointments with Tom and take it up a slight notch. She's consistently third wheeling the relationship between Tom and Natalia, instead of feeling like she's a character of her own and an individual member of the Tom, Natalia, Gabby trio. I think there is a potential path for her to really stake a claim and leave some impact on the season, but it's not really looked into at all for the past 16 episodes. I'd love to see Gabby interact with Olivia and Nura, but since Nura's highly wary of the favorites, I'm unsure how that will happen exactly. Unfortunately, since she's not getting much content now, I have my doubts that she'll get the content she needs in the future. The pacing for Gabby's story is very slow and intermittent, and I don't see how she can continue on with this. But, anyways, that's all the characters in the episode. Overall, I feel incredibly ambivalent to what happened. Lake and Benji definitely took the brunt of ire from me. Lake is a character that doesn't sit well with me, especially since her story is building off what happened with Bruno, which was a whole storyline that didn't work for me. And Benji, while he did a lot this episode, most of it doesn't connect well with his pre merge experience to me. I would prefer if Benji's involvement started and stopped at his interactions with Nora and Olivia. But on the positive side, this episode did push Spencer forward a bit, which I did like. Of course, anything involving season 4 will resonate with me. For that, Spencer easily takes the MVP of the episode for me. For now, though, take care, have a nice day, and I'll see you next episode.